Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday. We made it through another week. Welcome to Happy Hour. Happy Hour is a time where we come together on my second channel, youtube.com/activelyunwoke, or on Odyssey, or on Rockfin, or on Rumble, on my main channels on all of those platforms, because I don't need to have two channels on every platform, just YouTube. And we watch a woke training or video in its full and complete form. We let them say whatever they want to say. We watch the boring bits. We watch the cringy bits. And we have some beverages, beer in my case, whatever you might be drinking as well, whether that might be wine or whiskey or water or coffee or tea or soda or whatever floats your boat. I am not one to judge either way. And we talk about it and we make fun of it and we blow off some steam, because I happen to be of the opinion that fighting the woke shouldn't always be a mind-numbing experience. Sometimes it can be fun. Sometimes we can have levity. Did you guys know that Happy Hour is now endorsed by 7 Days, a progressive newspaper in Vermont? I was so thrilled to receive their endorsement. They actually pointed out in their endorsement that, oh, not Happy Hour, Spy Stream. I guess kind of the same thing, though. Spy Stream got endorsed. We might be doing a Spy Stream on Sunday. More coming on that soon. Brian says, so about your disc in your book that mentions that a DC tends to be authoritarian, how do you think that plays into the Libertarian Party, if it does? So it's not that DCs are authoritarian, really. And actually, it's funny. I've been recording my audiobook, streaming it in my locals, and I did this section today. It's not that they're necessarily authoritarian. It's that they tend to have more of those tendencies. So when you have tendencies where you want to be in charge, you want to be the boss, sometimes that's going to manifest as you rising to an executive level position. Sometimes that's going to manifest as you starting your own business and being an entrepreneur. That's probably how that would play out in terms of like libertarians, because you can be an authoritarian in your own life, right? You can be an authoritarian in your own business. And then sometimes if you don't have a job or you don't have another way you're focusing that energy, you might become a little woke activist. So don't take any, and we'll talk more about DISC, I think, in the next couple of months. But the thing with the DISC information in the book is it was a very, very brief section. I'm not going to go into all the details and nuances, but not just because you have that style does not mean you're necessarily going to be like a woke authoritarian, because there are a whole bunch of different ways that style can manifest. But I appreciate the question, Brian. I love DISC stuff, and I definitely want to do DISC stuff more. All right, guys, today for Happy Hour, we have got a very special training. Now, last week, as you remember, we watched a bunch of shorter videos. And one of the videos that we watched was like a 3-minute clip from PBS talking about it with a couple of teachers talking about, honestly, it was like really cringy and crazy. If you go back and watch last week's Happy Hour, it was awful. But in the process of that, I managed to find this video right here, PBS, which means taxpayer funded. State-sanctioned racism, some people might say. PBS did a whole hour-long documentary about tools for anti-racist teaching, deepening understanding, systemic racism's impact on education. This is an hour long, and we're going to watch the whole dang thing because I want to see what my tax dollars are paying for. It only has 4,000 views. For PBS, like, you would think that they would actually have more views on this, only 4,000. And it's also pretty recent. I think that this was just last year. Hang on, let me just check the date. Yeah, this was June 15th, 2021. So this here video is less than a year old. Oh, look at this. Look at this. We even have their chat. They had it live streamed apparently. Look at this. There are some look at this. We have someone watching from Burlington, Vermont. You guys can't probably see this, but that comment that I have highlighted says, "Hi from Burlington, Vermont." Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? We also have CBS's tools for anti. This is actually about, holy shit. I didn't even see this. They did a whole series. Oh! Episode 2. So what we're watching today is episode 1. Episode 2, Affirming Identities, the content we teach. Wow. All right, so we might actually have to come back and watch some more of this at some point, depending on how this goes. But this is what we're watching today. Let's see. Actually, it should have a description on this here page. Today we are watching Deepening Understanding: Systemic Racism's Impact on Education. The evidence that systemic racism is embedded in our education system is clear. From zoning to discriminatory policies to who is teaching what, and the existence of a school to prison pipeline. This is an ongoing discussion around the country. This 1 hour discussion will examine history and the effects of systemic racism on education, how we have come to understand it, and the role educators can play to disrupt and dismantle these harmful systems. That's what we're watching today. That's what we're watching today. Oh, fun fact. Spirit Matter says, that stuff from Rufo's tweet the other day caught me off guard. Yeah, I agree, Spirit Matter. Fun fact, though, YouTube monetized it. That stream, I once got a strike on YouTube for reading a peer-reviewed study from the New England Journal of Medicine. But YouTube thinks it's perfectly fine to show entire videos about dildos and other recorded sex toys. So, just fun fact. Steve says, what platform would you prefer I watch on? Honestly, Steve, YouTube. And the reason I say YouTube is that I'm able to see your chat when you're on YouTube. I can look over on my other screen and see the chat on Odyssey and Rockfin and Rumble as well. Sometimes I miss Rumble rants because I honestly just am not looking at the Rumble chat. It doesn't integrate with StreamYard yet. So I do actually prefer that you watch it on YouTube because I can see your chats. I can display it on the screen. I know it's not perfect. YouTube also has polls, and it's where the most people are in the chat. So it's also probably going to be the most fun for you. Well, oh my God, hang on. Sorry to cough up a lung into the microphone. Hang on. I just spent about an hour and a half working on my audiobook, so I've been reading for a minute. So I apologize for that. All right, guys, so that's what we're watching today, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But a few quick things before we get started. Number one, a programming note. I will be at the Libertarian National Convention next week, and Friday is a business day, which basically means I'm going to be sitting around a convention center voting on stuff. So we will not be having happy hour next week. And in general, my streaming schedule next week is probably going to be a little bit wonky. I may do stuff later at night. I may do mystery streams because it's really going to be dependent on what the actual convention schedule is and what's going on. So I just want everyone to be aware of that. I do want to bring you as much content from the convention as I can because I'm really excited. I think it's going to be really, really cool, but it is going to futz things up for about a week, and then we'll get back into our regular order of business the following week. Number two, though, before I head to Reno for the ultimate takeover of the Libertarian Party by people who are not insane woke leftists. And by the way, guys, it is actually pretty cool. What is happening in the Libertarian Party next week is going to be the first time that wokeness has been beaten back in a major political movement. Well, I mean, some might not consider libertarians to be major, but it is actually pretty significant of what's happening with the Mises Caucus next week, pretty much probably taking over the management of the Libertarian Party. What that means is it's a clear instance of wokeness being defeated, which is actually pretty amazing if you think about it. But before I head to Reno for that, we do have some business to take care of tomorrow. Now, as you guys know, I'm a work hard, play hard channel. I believe in doing serious things. I believe in doing fun things like we're doing today for happy hour. And on Saturdays, sometimes I turn into a dramatic little bitch because I'm inspired by Graphically Alex, who is also a dramatic little bitch. And, it's important to have these outlets for our dramatic energy. So if you are not a fan of internet drama, Sassy Saturday is not the stream for you. However, if you are a fan, even if you're just a secret fan, you don't have to admit it, if you are a fan, we will be watching. Well, we're going to be having a great Sassy Saturday tomorrow on my main channel starting at 6 p.m. Graphically, Alex and I are going to be watching a stream with my internet nemesis, Karen Town Crier Smith. And she is going to be talking with her heretic pastor, who totally blesses Carrie in the lies and gossip that she engages in on the internet all the time. Totally pastor approved, because Carrie's pastor kicks people out of the church if they don't reform their sinful ways, but not Carrie, because Carrie is an internet celebrity. And so Carrie can get away with whatever she wants to get away with, apparently, even if it's lying, which I was told was a pretty big Christian sin. But apparently that doesn't matter. So tomorrow we are going to be watching a stream with Carrie and her heretic pastor, hopefully schooling me on Christianity. And of course, I will have the help of the illustrious Graphically Alex, who is a Christian, to help walk through the nuance of what they're talking about. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great stream. We're going to start at 6 p.m. The stream we're watching is about 2 hours long. So this could conceivably be, this is going to be like the haters on Twitter are going to be like, can you believe that Karlyn streamed for like 8 hours? How dare she stream for that long? Who does she think she is? Yeah, this could be a long stream. It could be. But since we're not going to have Sassy Saturday next week, because I'm going to be gallivanting off with the libertarians, we have to, we have to do it right. We have to do it up. That's going to be starting at 6 p.m. tomorrow on my main channel, and I hope you will join me for that. Now, of course, if you want to support the work I do, whether it's serious work or fun work or dramatic work, I hope you'll consider becoming a member of my locals community. Now, you can join my locals for free at kb.locals.com. You can get an idea of what's going on, start to see what's happening in the community. But if you do want to support the work I do and get access to all sorts of exclusive perks, you want to head over to kb.locals.com/support, and you can join for $5 a month. You can join for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift. Now, a very special benefit that you're going to get this weekend is I am working overtime to try to get my audiobook re-recorded. I just started recording it the other day. I want to have this done before I leave for Reno on Tuesday and off to the audiobook editor. So I really am working very, very hard to make sure, and I will be working all weekend to make sure that this audiobook is recorded as quickly as possible while still keeping it good. I think I'm doing a good job. So what I'm actually doing in the recording of this audiobook is I'm live streaming the recording of it into my locals community. Now, you're going to hear me mess up. You're going to hear me flub. You're going to hear me repeat things. So this is not going to be a perfect audiobook. That's why they have editors. I record what I want, and then I send it off to the editor, and they take out all the ums and uhs and, oh, fuck, I mispronounced that word. They take all that stuff out to make it sound nice. But if you want a special behind the scenes look and listen to me recording the audiobook, I am streaming that for supporters only for the rest of the weekend until this audiobook is damn well done. This is my penance to all of you for the initial quality control issues with the first audiobook that led this little exercise to be necessary in the first place. So you can watch it while it's happening. You can listen to it while it's happening. You can hear me screw up. You can, I don't know, chat in what you think of it. You can tell me if it's good. You can tell me if it's bad. But I appreciate the people who've been listening along. It helps me because I feel like I'm reading to people rather than just like talking to myself in my office by myself. So that's what's going on in my locals. You're going to get access to that when you become a supporter. And of course, if you haven't picked up the book yet, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, all sorts of different independent booksellers. You can get the hardcover and the Kindle version available now. Of course, the audio version will be coming back soon. But if you want to pick up your copy, now is a great time. And if you have already purchased a copy of the book, what I want you to do is go over to activelyunwoke.com, and I want you to go to Unwoke events. And there you are going to find information about joining the exclusive Actively Unwoke book club. This is going to be a 3-part book club because the book is written in 3 parts. It is going to start on June 4th. It will have meetings on June 4th, June 18th, and July 2nd to discuss each of the parts of the book. And by the end of the book club, you should come out of it with all the information that you need and maybe even an actual plan about how to fight back against woke insanity in your life. How do you sign up for that book club? Number 1, you need to purchase the book. Number 2, you need to forward your receipt for that purchase to bookclub@activelyunwoke.com. And that's it. It's totally free. It's private. It's with me. If you are not available for the dates of this book club, I'm probably going to be doing it again later in the year, so you don't have to worry about that. But I want to give as many people in this as possible. You'll be able to connect with like-minded people who will help keep you sane, to explore the content. We can come up with ideas together. We can brainstorm. It's going to be really fun. So make sure if you got the book, sign up for book club. All right. I know I saw a super chat from my favorite rabble-rouser, Murphy's Pool. I was so excited. Karlyn tells me I'm a god. I go home and tell my wife, I'm a god. She says, okay, God, show me a miracle and take the garbage out and unload the dishwasher. You know, that's what you get, Murphy's Pool. That's what you get. But speaking of Murphy's Pool and his irrational hatred of my beer selections, let's talk about our beer choices for today. And of course, we've started a new policy, basically dictated by Patrice, who is the unofficial queen of my chat. And Patrice has demanded, not really, but kind of, that I poll the audience about which beer I should drink first. Now, as per usual, I have 4 selections. I'm not going to be drinking all 4. Don't get too excited. It's just because the rings come in 4, so I have to fill up because I'm a little anal sometimes. A little OCD, one might say. And I'm like, if I only get 3, it's not even. Okay, so I buy 4 beers. Let me show you what I have. I've got some good ones today. Patrice, you're going to be psyched. Okay. The first one, actually, I don't want to start with that one. I want to start with this one. We're going from light to dark. Light to dark. The first one I have is from Pipe Dream Brewing. And what is this called? It is called Hugh Heffy. Hugh Heffy. And it is a banana beer. This is a... What did I see? I definitely saw a description somewhere. Hang on. This is a classic Hefeweizen with massive banana flavors and aromatics. And look at that. Look at that. He really does have a massive banana, doesn't he? So that is our first one. Hang on. I'm just going to type this into the chat. Which beer should I drink first? And our first option is banana. Our second option is called Working from Home, and it's called The Wit Hit the Fan. And I just thought that was kind of a clever thing. This is from Throwback Brewery, and this is a Belgian-style wit brewed with rhubarb. I love rhubarb beer. Rhubarb beer is good. So that's going to be our second option. How are we spelling rhubarb today? Rhubarb. Rhubarb, by the way, is basically the best. What is that a vegetable? Must be a vegetable. It's so good. You just pick it and you like wash it and put a little bit of salt on it. Oh, so good. Hang on, Patrice. You don't know which one you're going with yet. Hang on. Next up, we have Tort Spectacular, and this is from Foundation Brewing Company. And this is a milk stout with cacao, vanilla, raspberry, and natural flavors. So we're going to go with raspberry stout. And then the last one, and I'm a little bit scared, to be honest, that you guys are going to pick this one out as the first one that I'm going to drink, because it's honestly the coolest and probably the one I'm most excited about. But this is probably not responsible for to be the first beer that I drink for happy hour. Okay, I'm just going to put this out there. It's not responsible. This beer is called Who the Fuck Put Carrot in the Cake? And it is a 10% stout edition. It's a 10% alcohol content beer. And it is a collaboration between Abomination Brewing Company, Branch and Blade Brewing Company, and Skygazer Brewing Company. And it is an imperial milk stout with carrot, chocolate, cream cheese, cinnamon, and granola. It's a carrot cake stout. For real. I don't even like carrot cake, but I was like, fuck. I have to try this. Carrot cake stout. All right. Poll is in the chat on YouTube. Which one am I starting with today? Let me know. Go easy on me. You guys get to choose. I will drink whatever one you tell me to drink. I know you all have opinions, but I feel like these are some good. I didn't get one sour. Not one single sour for today. Let's see. Oh, banana is off to a head start. No, I'm not drinking your Italian water beer, Murphy's Pool. Murphy's Pool always wants me to drink his Italian water beer. No. I decline. Let's see. Oh, God, the banana and the rhubarb are neck and neck. Okay, so I appreciate this. It's going to be the banana or the rhubarb to start. I think that's a good choice. You always want to start with beer. You generally want to start with lighter beer, and then you work your way into the darker beers. I fucking love rhubarb. Oh, my God. I need to start growing rhubarb again. It's so good. It's so good. All right. We've got 25 votes in. I've got 20 more people left in the chat who haven't voted yet, so we're going to do a little countdown. And mount that like button, please, while we're waiting for the votes on the beer to come in. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we're ending the poll, and it looks like banana beer just barely beat the rhubarb beer. So let's get this open. Yeah, it's big banana energy. I mean, I think it's a good choice. Hefeweizens are delicious. It's a nice day. And I haven't had a good banana beer in a while. So let's see. Get a good head on it. We're going to see what the aromatics are really like in this beer. Oh, shit, that's banana. They weren't lying. That definitely smells like banana. That's really good. If you like banana bread, that's a good beer. Well done, Pipe Dream Brewing. I find Pipe Dream, to be honest, a little hit or miss. Sometimes I really like their beers. Sometimes I really don't. But this is a good one. Well done. All right, guys. With that beer out of the way, or the initial drink anyway out of the way, let's get this party started. Let's watch us some anti-racism training. If you have something that you're drinking that is interesting for the group, let us know what you're drinking in the chat. All right. Let's start the show.
You must.
There's the sound. I was like, where's the sound?
To any citizen of this country.
Oh, fucking bingo. God damn it. I forgot bingo. Hang on. I'll get bingo cards. I forgot bingo today. I'm sorry. Thank you, Jess, for reminding me about bingo. All right. There's your bingo card. You're going for lines or corners. Once you get your bingo, shout it out in the chat. You won't win anything, but we'll give you a nice congratulations. Ooh, Fender made some pineapple sangria. I love sangria. Sangria's great. All right, guys, grab your bingo cards if you want to. Let's get going.
Himself as responsible, and particularly those of you who deal with the minds and hearts of young people, must be prepared to go for broke. Or to put it another way, you must understand that in the attempt to correct so many generations of bad faith and cruelty, when it is operating not only in the classroom, but in society, you will meet the most fantastic, the most brutal.
Why do I feel like we came in the middle of this? I mean, look at his 1619 project had. Okay, can I ask a question? Seriously, what is it with men who leave the sticker on their hat on their visor? I've never understood this. What is the appeal of leaving the sticker on the hat? The sticker is a sticker because it's designed to be taken off of the hat. Why are men leaving it on the hat? I don't understand this. It did feel like we came in right in the middle of it, though. I just want to make sure that we didn't. What was that about? Murphy Spool says, if you drink banana-flavored beer, you will get monkeypox. I will never get monkeypox. Nope. Don't believe it. It makes you edgy? Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't get it at all. If anyone can explain this to me, I will be deeply indebted to you.
Everyone in this room is in one way.
All right. Maybe he does a dramatic introduction or something that we missed. Come on. I'm not fast forwarding again. Every time I fast forward, I miss. Oh, there he is.
Let's begin by saying that we are living through a very dangerous time.
Oh my God.
Everyone in this room is in one way or another aware of that. We are in a revolutionary situation, no matter how unpopular that word has become in this country. The society in which we live is desperately menaced, not by Khrushchev, but from within.
Oh my God.
To any citizen of this country who figures himself as responsible, and particularly those of you who deal with the minds and hearts of young people, must be prepared to go for broke. Or to put it another way, you must understand.
He's starting with a soliloquy. I've never seen this in a happy hour. Can any of you remember a happy hour when like there was a soliloquy at the beginning? I mean, it's dramatic. I'll give him that. But what is the virtue of wearing a brand new hat? Like hats, like he's bent the rim of that hat. It's not brand new. I just don't understand it. Anyway, who cares if it's like what the like? Who cares if a hat is counterfeit? A hat is like what, like $30? We're not talking about an expensive $1,000+ purse here. We're talking about a hat. I don't understand it. I guess everyone has their own things. Maybe this is maybe me having a boomer moment. I'm like, I want my hat to be broken in. I want it to be old. I want it to have some life. I want it to look like it's been beaten up. Like, I don't mind my hats not looking brand new.
And that in the attempt to correct so many generations of bad faith and cruelty, when it is operating not only in the classroom, but in society, you will meet the most fantastic, the most brutal, and the most determined resistance. There is no point in pretending that this won't happen. James Baldwin, A Talk to Teachers, 1963. These words are as applicable then as they are now.
Look at that woman's wearing a This is going to be an amazing show.
Teaching.
This is going to be amazing.
Lang,
She's wearing a decolonized education. Hang on.
In Las Vegas, Nevada.
Why is she wearing a decolonized education shirt? I thought critical race theory wasn't taught in K through 12 schools. Why? How are you decolonizing education if you're not teaching critical race theory? I think that's a fair question.
Adam, we're happy to learn with you over the next 4 sessions as we explore ways to incorporate anti-racism strategies in our classrooms. Our series will feature conversations with...
Oh, you're featuring anti-racist strategies in your classrooms? Because again, I was led to understand during the time period when this was actually filmed, that critical race theory was not taught in K through 12 schools.
Amazing guests, hosted by myself and the amazing Roshana Beard. Today, we'll examine systemic racism's impact on education with the goal of deepening our understanding, perspective, and knowledge of the impact of white supremacy and racism in education.
Justice sits like a majestic gemstone hidden in the depths of
Oh my God, they have scripted this whole thing out.
We are here to engage in conversation, to make way for change, no matter how hard it is to hear. We are not looking for a seat at the table. We want a new table that was built with the tools of equity, love, and compassion. I am Roshana Beard.
We are not looking for a seat at the table. We want a new table. That's another way of saying they want a completely new system. What have I always said? What have I been preaching and hammering home for the last... I mean, I've said it for a while, but I've gotten really explicit about how I've been saying it lately. Critical race theory is all about gaining political power so they can destabilize the system, so they can fight capitalism, so they can usher in their little Marxist utopia. That's all it is. I don't care if race is in the title. Critical race theory is about destabilizing the system so that they can get rid of capitalism and usher in their little Marxist utopia. And she basically just said that in that part of the presentation where she said, we don't want a seat at the table. We don't want the current system. We want a new table entirely. They want a completely new system. It's about revolution. It's not about fairness and justice and equality.
Taking space as a mentor teacher and early learning champion in Tallahassee, Florida. In this 1 hour webinar, we will be filled with information and discomfort. So please be present and do what you need to do to be present for this conversation. All 4 episodes of the series are not an end all to the learning about racism and anti-racism, but act as a catalyst to inspire, mobilize, and deepen our collective understanding of racism in context to education in America. Through this learning, educators will be able to feel empowered to make change in their classrooms and personal practices, gain a deeper understanding of the root and systematic issues in context of Black lives, racism, and equity, become knowledgeable of anti-racism resources and strategies, and reflect on their role in the systematic oppression within education. By doing this continuous learning, we will strengthen the voices and experiences of our students during this time of civil unrest. Though this school year is still facing some uncertainty, we have a responsibility as educators to unlearn this system and learn how we can combat racism and enact anti-racism in our classrooms and everyday lives.
That's not nice.
Over the course of the next hour, we are going to dive into the intricacies of systematic racism, oppression, and media literacy. We will engage with our panelists who will also answer some live questions from you all at the end. So please utilize the chat box over the next hour as we will be collecting questions. Let's go over some YouTube tips to ensure a smooth experience so we can focus on our time learning together.
Hang on, I just want to say thank you, Jan. I appreciate the compliment about my book. I hope everyone who is reading the book right now is enjoying it. And if you enjoyed it, please leave me a 5-star review on Amazon. It really does help with the sale of the book. And a thing I didn't think of, and I apologize, I forget which member of my locals brought this up, but it was a really good point. Make sure you review the book on Goodreads too. You can't review the book on Amazon unless you bought the book on Amazon, because and that's actually a good thing because they're protecting against like negative reviews of the book from people who haven't read it. But you can review it on Goodreads. And so I would definitely appreciate the book on Goodreads has already gotten a couple negative reviews from like people who obviously didn't even effing read it. So anything that we can do to counterbalance the haters, if you want to support the book, reviewing it on whatever platform you bought it on. And if you didn't buy it online or you bought it on like from an independent bookstore or something, do it on Goodreads. But if you bought the book on Amazon, please review it on Amazon. 5 stars only. If you have anything less than 5 stars, keep it to yourself. Please and thank you.
On the right side of your screen, you're going to see your chat box there. That's going to allow you to introduce yourself, post any comments you would like, and submit questions for our panelists. And throughout the event, we'll try our best to integrate those questions into our conversation and answer most of them by the very end. Please include your name before the question so we can give you a shout out. Within the chat box, you can also change your view from top chat to live chat. And the live chat is going to help you see what everyone is posting in real time. So if anything comes to mind in our conversation, please utilize that chat box. And be sure to look out for resources that our team from PBS will be posting in that chat as well. If you are joining us today and you are not registered, please be sure to register now. My friends in the chat box will drop that link so that we can send you the recording and resources discussed today. Additionally, please make sure to register for the next 3 parts of the series. On our chat, our friends in the chat box will throw that in there as well. Let's go over some community guidelines with Roshana.
Racism will not be tolerated. I wonder how they're defining racism. Please model empathy. We're all experts at our own experiences. We are all learning. Be open to new ideas. Focus on topic and growth in new knowledge. Do not include comments that incite violence. Do not use curse or vulgar words. I want to know how they're defining racism. That is my number one question.
This conversation may cause some discomfort to some people. In order to
He
work
means
through
white
discomfort
people.
and center ourselves in this learning, we've crafted some community guidelines that you see here on the screen that we'll be following throughout this conversation. Racism will not be tolerated. Please model empathy. We're all coming from different entry points as we come to this conversation.
He didn't define what
we are
racism
all
means.
Experts of our own experiences. So please focus your time here on growth and learning. With that, we are all learning, so it's okay not to know some things. We will not judge folks for not knowing those things. Please be open to new ideas and keep your comments and questions focused on the topic and growth in new language. Please do not include comments that incite any violence and don't use curse or any vulgar words. Pretty please be sure to go on top. If these community guidelines are violated in the chat box, you lose, your ability to utilize that chat box.
I still don't know what he means by
right,
racism.
To the main event here. We are so very happy to kick off this series with two dynamic guests. First, we're happy to be joined by Yadibe Evans, the Empress. Evans is the creative producer of the PBS kids show Molly of Denali. She's a native Alaskan.
Hang on. This is a producer of a PBS kids show. Let's just all keep that in mind as we hear her talking. She produces a kids show for PBS, funded by our taxpayer dollars.
The Atna culture, the stewards of the Copper River.
This makes me sad because the new Downton Abbey movie is coming out, and now I want to watch a Downton Abbey, but now I don't want to support PBS, but Downton Abbey is still amazing. I don't care what anyone says. I will not allow these people to ruin Downton Abbey for me just because PBS is woke.
Region. From 2011 to 2021, Evans led the Alaska Native Education Program in Fairbanks, Alaska. This program met the educational and cultural needs of indigenous.
You saw it? Oh my God. I'm debating on whether or not I want to see it in the theater. The last one was so good. Like, I kind of want to, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I love Downton Abbey. Okay, fun fact. Don't tell him I told you this. Victor also loves Downton Abbey, but he doesn't admit it. And Victor does one of these things where he's like, do you want to have a Downton Abbey marathon? And I'm like, Victor, do you want to have a Downton Abbey marathon? He's like, maybe. No, Downton. Not downtown, Downton. If you don't know, you need to find out.
Children. Welcome to our talk tonight, Yadibe.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much, Mike. It's wonderful to be here on the land of the Tenochtitlan,
Land
which is
blessing!
where I'm calling in from. And I'm looking forward to our conversation today. Thanks.
We're also joined by Dr. Janice Gassim-Asare. Dr. Gassim-Asare is the founder of BWG Business Solutions, LLC, an award-winning consultancy designed to help organizations create more inclusive environments. Janice facilitates workshops, delivers keynotes and speeches and awareness talks to spark important dialogue about workplace equity. She is the host of the Dirty Diversity podcast, great name, where she discusses all things diversity, equity, and inclusion. Welcome, Dr. Gassim.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much, Mike. You have such a dynamic voice. So thank you. I'm really excited to be here with Yadibe, and I'm ready for the conversation.
All right. So panelists, today's session is entitled Deepening Understanding Systemic Racism's Impact on Education, kind of a weighty topic to start everything out with. We have the goal of deepening our understanding again and our perspective and our knowledge of the impact of white supremacy and racism in education. So to kind of get us started this evening, think back a little bit about your experience in the K-12 education system and how was racism personified then and how is that embedded in our K-12 education system?
That's a great question, Mike, and I'm so glad that you asked because I've got this crazy story. So I grew up here also in Fairbanks and attended the local school district that I just worked for the last decade. And as a youth, Native youth, it was really challenging being here as a person of color, an Indigenous person, because there's not a lot of importance, or there hasn't been importance or respect towards our cultures and the fact that we're the first ones on this land. And so many peers would make fun of, our appearances, as well as our dialect, the way we would speak English.
This is the PBS producer.
Pronunciations are different. And also, what we eat, what are our traditional foods that have sustained us. And even some of my friends would say that they were Puerto Rican just in order to get a little bit of the flack off of them. And it seems a little bit contrary to folks in the States, because a lot of racism happens to all other people of color. But in Alaska, it's better to be anybody else, essentially, besides Alaska Native, which is really confounding.
I don't believe that. I don't believe her. I don't believe her.
In high school,
I'm sorry.
As an Indigenous student.
Don't believe her.
I began my freshman year in honors programs, a very great start, educational foundation. But at that time, my parents divorced and I lost my dog. And I started struggling in school. And rather than having a teacher that reached out to me to figure out what was going on at home and why there was a sudden difference in my, education work, she put me into a class for people that don't know English very well and it's like basic English. And I had a great teacher. She helped teach me, English skills for what I do today. But that lack of care, concern for who I was, then infiltrated all the way to my senior year. And mind you, I had taken some turns and embraced some of those stereotypes about Alaska Native youth and got into some youthful trouble. But I wanted to run for student body president when I became a senior. And I wasn't aware of all of the procedures that you have to follow to run, and that there's a deadline. And so I missed it. But I ran as a write-in candidate and advocated throughout the school for people to vote for me, got up on tables in the lunchroom, and I actually won. I won as a write-in. But the teacher that was over the student body council at the time was actually the same English teacher that I had started out with. And she came to me and she said, I know that you won the election. However, you're not a good enough example for us to have you as a student body president. So fast forward 20 years, she's like one of the main people at the school district that I was working for. And I was like super intense to have that trauma then go into my adulthood, where I'd, primarily healed a lot of the way. But then it was like, oh,
well, you didn't heal then, dude.
What's going on?
You didn't heal then. Sorry.
Enthusiasm that I see in the hallway real? Anywho, that's my story about my experience of childhood education has impacted me today, and it was really challenging being in a position where you're advocating for Alaska Native students, and you're also wondering what they're saying on the other side of the table.
Hang on. Listen, if that really happened to her and she got elected as a writing candidate, and we can ignore the fact that she missed the deadline because she wasn't a detail-oriented person when she was in high school, because they're high schoolers, we can overlook that. Like, let's just say that the story she just told is true. And I question whether or not it's true, but let's just give her the benefit of the doubt that the teacher prevented her from becoming the student body president, which we all know doesn't do anything anyway. There is no responsibility that student body presidents actually have. I'm sorry, not of any significance at all. And so let's just say that happened. That's bullshit. If that happened, that was bullshit. However, for her to still claim that she's traumatized by that today, as she's producing a children's show on PBS, just kind of shows that she kind of dwells on the negative. She dwells on this is like 20 years later, dude. Like, get over it. I don't even remember most of my teachers from high school. If I saw my teachers from high school walking down the street, I would probably have no effing idea what they are or who they are. I wouldn't even remember their names. That's the truth. And I didn't have the happiest high school experience. And by the way, guess what? High school is hard for everyone. Bullshit happens to everyone. Like, I could tell sad stories from high school as well. I could tell stories about being a band geek, and the high school that I was at was like small and they wanted to get rid of the band program, and so they were discouraging people from joining band, and so they ended up putting band during lunch, which meant that I didn't actually eat lunch for 2 years at my high school because I was more committed to being in band than I was to eating. That was kind of bullshit. Like, we can all tell sucky stories from high school because high school sucks. This is one of the reasons we needed to fund the public schools in the first place.
Addie Bay, that is intense. Like, I'm so sorry you went through that. For me, my experiences were
I played
like,
the clarinet primarily. Thank you for
white,
asking.
Like neighborhoods, and I didn't realize until I think it was last year or this year, someone posted a question on LinkedIn, and they said, when was the first time you had a teacher that was the same race as you? And like, this is literally like 2020 or 2021. And I sat and I thought about it, and I was like stumped. And I thought, and I moved around a lot growing up. I went to 3 different high schools. I never had a Black teacher in K through 12.
No.
It wasn't until my
I have no stories.
College, I had a Black professor, and he was
no, I don't still play.
I changed my major from pre-nursing to psychology, and it was because of him. And I remember when I was in like 6th grade, my sister and I went to the same school. We had this white teacher. And for those of you watching, I know that I don't think Mike mentioned in my bio, but like, writing is my first love. I love to write, my favorite thing to do. And so some folks watching may have read some of the articles that I've written, but I love to write. And I had a book report that I did. And it was, we had to choose a book, write a report on it. My sister and I both read the same book. We wrote the same report. My sister's older. She had this teacher and she wrote it on the book, The Giver, which was one of my favorite
Giver
books
is a great book.
And
hang on.
I too decided to.
The Giver is a great fucking book. If you have never read The Giver, so I took a children's literature. Okay, so can I tell you guys, I had this one fucking semester of college where I had possibly the best schedule that I have ever created of any college semester schedule. I think this was like, I'm pretty sure this was in my junior year. Check it. Maybe it was in my senior year. I forget. But anyway, check out my schedule. I had Mondays and Fridays off. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I didn't start class until 12:30. And on Wednesdays, my only class was 6 to 9. Now on Thursdays, it kind of sucked because I had like 12:30 to 2 and then 2 to like 4 and then like 6 to 9. So I had a big day on Thursdays, but like that was like the best semester of my life. Anyway, I tell that story because that was the semester that the Wednesday class was children's literature. I took an entire class on children's literature, so it was not the hardest class in the world. And we did read the book, The Giver, and The Giver was awesome. That is a great book. They made a movie out of it too. The movie is not as good as the book. Read the book if you've never, I don't care if it's a young adult book. I don't care. It's really good.
To write this book report on The Giver the following year. And my teacher accused me of plagiarizing my sister's book report. Mind you, she had my sister's report and she had my report. They were nothing alike. I didn't even consult my own sister, who I knew wrote a report on the same topic. And it was just completely preposterous that you have the reports in front of you. Why would you think? And when I confronted her about it, she's like, well, did she write it for you? No, I just like to write. And it was, I guess her thinking was maybe this couldn't have been written by you. So you had to have consulted someone else in writing it. And so I've had all kinds of like microaggressive experiences like that growing up. And my final 2 years of high school, I went to school, an all Black school. And we still had, most of us didn't have any Black teachers. And so I think like if my parents weren't both educators, I don't know what I know what kind of impact that had on my belief system and my belief in myself. And I had parents and family that could pour into me, but I always think, imagine if I didn't have anyone that was there telling me that I could do it, the impacts of these microaggressions. A lot of these teachers who don't come from the racial groups that they're teaching have no idea that they're engaging in these stereotypes and these self-fulfilling prophecies, assuming that these kids are from certain backgrounds and having no idea about their upbringing and coming into the classroom with all of these assumptions. So I think about all of this now because, you know, I'm sure we'll get to it, but like the school to prison pipeline is so real. And the fact that Black kids are more likely to be punished and expelled and suspended than their counterparts plays such a huge role in what happens in their life. And I think that teachers are so important in anyone's life, especially here in the States. So I think that like this conversation is so important, and we don't talk about anti-racism in the classroom enough.
Okay, I'm back. And I don't want to slow down the momentum of this conversation because you're hitting every nail on the head. So let's go ahead. You've already started. Let's go ahead and talk about systematic racism. Define it. Go ahead and share your definitions of systematic racism and how it impacts education. You shared your stories. I have similar stories. We've had some people in the chat. Cosette Levis has said that she had a similar story, and it's unbelievable. ML has had a similar experience my sophomore year in high school in my AP government class where I was the only African-American student.
Wait. That it's a characteristic of systemic racism. That's not what systemic racism is. That's not what it means. Now, I'm sorry if you were traumatized by the fact that you were the only Black kid in class, but that's just a reality some places. It's just reality. School districts can't snap their fingers and create more Black students. They probably would if they could. They would have tried that like a long time ago, man. That's not what systemic racism is.
University, and out of 20, I was the only Black student in my education courses. So let's talk about how systematic racism has impacted, define it, and go into a conversation with that.
Yeah, I think when I think of systematic or systemic racism, I think of how racism permeates every single structure and system within education. So when you look at, again, like punishment, it's always Black children. And Black children who are getting expelled and suspended are less likely to stay in school. So if they're, so it has all of these reverberating impacts on their life. And one thing that I've been thinking about a lot is like the role that the community that you live in plays in the school. So we all know that like the neighborhoods you live in controls the funding that the school has. And Black and brown children are more likely to live in under areas that are underfunded, and therefore the schools are underfunded. And I went to school in Minnesota for 2 years. And when I moved back to Virginia, I thought it was really interesting that at this all Black school that was considered like a poor school in Virginia, there were no resources for like SAT prep. But when I was going to this white school in Minnesota, there were all of these resources to help prepare students.
Yes, congratulations. Some schools have more resources than others. I didn't have an SAT prep class in my school. I grew up in Vermont. I didn't have no SAT prep class. You know what my SAT prep class was? I bought the fucking book from the bookstore. That big ass like study guide with the practice tests. That was my SAT prep. I went to an all-white school. There was not one non-white person in my school at all. Was that systemic racism? The reality is some school districts have more money than others, which is another reason why we need to implement school choice. Oh, hey, Jamie. Good to see you. Good to see you again. Appreciate you being here.
For their SATs. So the SATs then play a big role, and now they're playing less of a role, but even the testing plays a big role in the schools you get into. And so all of these factors,
then we should, you know what?
And housing discrimination.
Then we should absolutely implement school choice and make it possible for every Black child to go to whatever school they want to go to. Every child, really, not just Black children, but Black children are included in every child. There we go.
Impacts the neighborhoods you can live in, because as we all know, when Black and brown people move into neighborhoods, the property values go down. So if you're not even able to move into a certain neighborhood, that controls your assets, because houses are the best way to build assets and build wealth. And so there are all of these things are interconnected. Black people were not able to own property. They were not able to own homes. Many of us are saddled with 6-figure student loan debt. So the amount of money that I pay on my student loans is like a mortgage for people here. So I'm just like, all of these things play such a big role. And then the schools within the schools, a lot of the teachers don't come from the backgrounds that students come from. So when you see a student you think is acting out or acting up, there are all of these underlying factors that teachers don't consider. The role that nutrition plays. Kids that aren't getting an adequate nutrition may be like, they have a lot of sugar in their diet. I remember I would go to the corner store and eat honey buns when I was young. Like, honey buns were the thing. A student that's eating a diet that's high in sugar, or eating like primarily even the stuff that they served, all of that plays a role and has an impact on your performance and how you behave. And it could be that you're not receiving adequate nutrition, and not that you're acting out, but the teacher is assuming and comes into the classroom with all of these assumptions. And I think it's just like, it's frustrating to me. I think every single teacher, especially if you work with predominantly Black and brown and indigenous populations, you should receive anti-racism training. You should know about the adultification bias. You should know about all of these things. And I just don't see that as being like a priority within school districts. Another thing I learned.
Really? Because you're literally doing a webinar for PBS right now. Would PBS be making this webinar if no one was going to consume this content? Okay, we could argue that only 4,000 people have watched this video, which, I mean, I would expect a little bit more for PBS if I'm honest with you. So maybe you have a point, but you are literally participating in a taxpayer-funded webinar right now. Don't tell me people aren't interested.
About, and I'm going to wrap up quickly because I know I'm taking up a lot of time, is like, even within the school board, like I was thinking, how do we get textbooks changed? In a lot of school districts, the school boards are chosen every like 5 to 7 years. And it's the parents that come from oftentimes that are part of the school board. So if I'm on a school board, it's hard to get on the school board. You run sometimes people don't nominate you to be on the board. And textbooks in a lot of states, it's not mandatory or mandated in some states to learn about racism and to learn about the true history. We all see what's happening with critical race theory and how all of these states are pushing back against learning about racism and the origins of racism in this country. So
critical race theory is not learning about racism. That's not what critical race theory is. And P.S., I thought critical race theory wasn't taught in K through 12 schools. Are you admitting that it is, panelist, on the PBS webinar? Because if it's not taught in K through 12 schools, it kind of sounds like you want it to be.
It's systemic even in the textbooks and the things that people read. I learned about Juneteenth 7 years ago, after I was out of my bachelor's, after I was out of my master's program, as an adult learning about Juneteenth. This is not something, and I grew up in the capital of the Confederacy. Like Virginia has so much history and we didn't learn that. So like I say all that to say it's like layered in every single aspect of the education system. So to me, it's like, where do we even begin to peel back the layers?
Where do we begin? Yeah. I think this conversation is one of those places, and the other episodes that I've seen with PBS Learning Media last year, my mind was blown and kind of getting a frame and idea for what we were going to be talking about today and just the format of everything. And for me, thinking about systemic racism, I think a lot about the Indian Removal Act and all the subsequent acts after that. So, you know, as we as colonizers did the westward expansion, they removed Native people off of their lands and just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And many people died, of course, along the Trail of Tears, because of, you know, on that venture, it was really challenging for food, water. The conditions were really harsh. It's not a pleasant experience to be walking that far and being removed from your lands. And then I think about also when we had the Assimilation Act that our government imposed in order to kill the Indian and save the man. And it really stripped us of our culture, our language, who we are as an identity, in order to save us, as though who we are as a people was wrong. And so these policies, these laws were created in order to eliminate, eradicate either us physically or like as an internal being. And here we are now trying to heal from that. And earlier today, I was...
No law or policy can eradicate you as an internal human being. And if you don't believe that, you need to read the Gulag Archipelago. Because Solzhenitsyn was never eradicated as an internal human being, and he was literally in the fucking gulag. You have never been put in a gulag. You had an unpleasant experience in high school when a teacher said something you didn't want to hear. That is not the same thing as existing in a gulag. I mean, Gulag Archipelago might be a little bit ambitious for book club. I'm still working my way through the audiobook, and the audiobook is great. Like like they do a really good job with it. It's just so long. Might be ambitious is all I'm saying. I would like to read more Rand for book club, if I'm honest. I know like Atlas Shrugged is like 1,000,000 pages long, but I would like to read more of it.
Part of this incredible gathering of Native artists in Alaska. And we were talking about healing and transformation from racism and systemic racism throughout, you know, not only our education system, but our different governmental systems, how we do business, how we tell our stories, how the media portrays people of color, and how we can strategically work to transform into an actual relationship where we are creating the story. It's not being imposed to us by a colonizing, you know, society of
this woman is such a victim.
Really the founders of our government, and they took into consideration the future of our nation without consulting a lot of people, and we've had to live with all of those laws and procedures. And so for, you know, the debate around critical race theory about it being embedded, racism being embedded in practices and policies and laws as a form of, you know, racist control or an agenda, I'm totally like, yeah, I can see it. I've seen it.
It is my lived experience.
What is available, who is being labeled as special education students because we can't relate to them. And it's a lack on our own part on figuring out how to relate to other human beings. And over the course of...
I'm going to say something that might come across as heartless. This woman is a raging idiot. Like, if this woman was labeled special education in school, it wouldn't surprise me. And I say that with, like, I know, like, you know, that's my mean, heartless statement of the day. But, like, this woman's an idiot. She's not smart. And the sad thing is, like, a lot of special ed students are very, very smart. They're, like, smart in different ways, and they need to be taught in different ways. But, like, this woman is not smart at all in any way.
Of my time in education, one of the biggest messages I always like to share was get outside your box, think outside the frame, break the frame, step out and meet somebody that, you know, maybe makes you uncomfortable, and read authors, read of people, read articles, watch podcasts of people that you normally wouldn't be drawn to, so that you can expand your mind to a.
Do you guys ever get the feeling that this anti-racism grift is really just like a way for these people to get us to watch their podcast? I kind of think that's what it is. This entire anti-racism push is just like the people like this, like her, a person that is not smart and probably not very competent or capable, like in her real life. She's like, watch my podcast. You have to. If you don't watch my podcast, then you are a racist. Like, it's really just a grift to get people to watch their content when people don't really want to watch their content because it's not good content. It's woke. If these people created good stories, like good compelling stories, I would have no issue with like people gravitating to it and watching it, but they don't. They create woke bullshit. That's all it is.
Another perspective, another worldview. And that's really what it comes down to, I think, is about our worldviews and our perspectives, is if we can.
I am not guaranteeing that I pronounced it correctly. I pronounce things wrong all the time. I have no idea if I pronounced it correctly or not. So, you know, someone can tell me in the chat if I pronounced it correctly. I like how it rings in my head is Gulag Archipelago, but I could be wrong about that.
First, acknowledge the fact that we have different worldviews, and that's okay. But like coming together and finding those similarities, and then finding the strengths between the differences where our values lie. And, you know, one of our Alaska Native values that I've really honed in on in my career is our connection to the land. And
oh, sweet. I got it right.
Stereotypical,
excellent.
But if you think about humanity as
Thank
a
you.
whole, and how our mental well-being has kind of gone down the toilet, then you look at what we value. We value consumerism. We value partying. We value indoor activities, gaming. We're not connecting with our environment. We're not taking time to be outside, to feel the air, that natural air, besides the air conditioned
What point is this woman
homes
making?
many of us live in. And you know, for me being in Alaska, it's such a huge difference because I can get outside every day and I don't have the fears that a lot of people in the States do. But I just want to encourage, like, for us all as humans, like a collective human race, to
She's
get
like,
outside,
go outside,
because I think that's really
outside is
anti-racist,
anti-racist,
and we can't start to have these conversations
outside is
together
healing
if we can't heal ourselves first. It's like, how can you love somebody else if you can't love yourself first? And if you're not filling yourself up, except for with consumption, food, you know, substances, then you're not going to ever be a satisfied person for yourself. And if you can't do that, then how can you give that love out? And that's what it boils down to. And in education, it's like, let's get to the basics. Humanity and love go a long way in understanding one another's stories. And I'm super excited to hear part of your story, Janice, today, and, you know, learn about some of our panelists, or our attendees that are watching.
Super cool. I mean, it's just, this is the 5th one we've done, Ro, and every time we do these, it's the truths that are exposed are so dynamic and so fulfilling. Like, you know, it's a very, it won't be cliche, but it's a very spiritual experience, just being filled by other people's perspective and other people's experiences. And so we mentioned
no, a webinar
already,
is not a spiritual experience.
systemic
I'm sorry,
racism.
it's
We
not.
also
A
talked
webinar
little
is
bit,
not a
I think,
spiritual
Dr. Gassam
experience.
kind of talked a little bit about the school to prison pipeline. We're going to go a little bit deeper with that. We use that term a lot, and I think a lot of people, when that term is used, they either don't perceive it as something that exists, they dismiss it on its face. What are the components of that system, and what are the outcomes for students, especially students of color? And how do we prove that that exists? I guess what's the evidence that exists, so that the person who just classically throws it on its face, we can go and point to evidence that this is the reason why this exists.
Yeah,
Well,
I think it. Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm so excited. So I was thinking about critical race theory and also the school to prison pipeline, and also our obsession with consumerism, and a lot of
How much do you want to bet this woman has no idea what critical race theory is? When asked for a definition, she would say something like, it's just an accurate telling of racism. That would be her definition of critical race theory.
prison systems, fund a lot of people's pockets, including, government politicians and whatnot. And so if we look back at some of those connections, follow the money trail, I think we'll see some startling intentions as to why this has continued to be allowed. But in Alaska alone, we spend 3.7 times more for a child to go to prison than on our public school students. And the disproportionate amount of students that are disciplined in our schools are boys, Native boys who have been labeled in special education. And this has been a published report through the National Congress of American Indians in 2017. So they really looked at the national data to show the proof that indeed our Indigenous youth are being punished more frequently, and the times that they're going into the correctional system, they're more likely to stay within the system than anybody else. And it's really challenging, I think, when you look at it from a large, like an overview as to how we can combat that. And you have to also think about like grading policies, classroom management practices.
They do speak Valley Girl in Alaska. They do.
The different
it's true.
Certification
it's
schools. True. And what is the message? What's the narrative that's being passed down? And it's, to me, like being involved in media now, we have such an opportunity to share a certain narrative. And I think for too long, that narrative has been told by white people without including us as a voice to make known our hard truths that we have to deal with and make a difference in our education system, so that we aren't seeing the achievement gaps, the graduation disproportions. And, as a former educator that really looked at our graduation rates every year, it was awesome to see the 15% raise over 7 years. And then it was like a sudden dip. And it's just unexplainable sometimes, but it was always on this constant, like 67% graduation. And yet our peers are graduating at an 80% rate. And so to have, that data point alone tells you there's something systemically wrong within the education system, whether it's coming through the classroom management practices, strategies, curriculum, the discipline policies, lack of understanding, all of the above. But Shannon.
Yeah, I think you Yadibe, you like hit all of the important points. I think prison labor is cheap, and prisoners are one of the few populations that we can get cheap or no cost labor from. So we've, I'm sure we've all seen the documentary 13th, and I'm sure most of you out there, but I think that Michelle Alexander did such an excellent job in the book, sort of illustrating how the new Jim Crow, the new way to extract Black labor, because I think that this country was built on Black and Indigenous labor. So it just is changing form every century. Oh, we can't enslave them anymore, so let's find a different way to enslave them. So we're going to put them in public schools, young Black children, and specifically young Black boys. We're going to punish them more than their peers, so that they're more likely to drop out of school, so that we can arrest them for something else, some minor crime. We'll catch them on something, arrest them. A lot of times, these young Black youth don't have money for adequate defenses, so they end up.
At what point are the young Black youth actually responsible for their actions? Or even a better question, at what point are their parents responsible for their actions? Because what it sounds like to me is she is literally insinuating that the schools should be responsible for parenting kids. And while I have a great deal of sympathy for people who might have shitty parents, because I had shitty parents, or might have problems at home, or whose dad isn't there in their life, I have great sympathy. And I think that that's something that people need to take personal responsibility for. It's not an ideal situation. However, insinuating that government schools should be responsible for parenting Black children just might be a little much. I don't think government schools should be responsible for parenting Black children. I don't think government schools should be responsible for parenting any children at all.
You know, getting thrown into the system. And once you are in the system, people just consider you a throwaway. It's like you're unredeemable. There's no sort of rehabbing somebody once they're in the system. Once you get out, in a lot of states, you have to put that you were in jail and you're not able to get a lot of opportunities. So, you know, until things like ban the box.
I will actually say, okay, this is going to be ironic. I am actually not in favor of having to report if you committed a crime or like a felony on a job application, because I do think it prevents a lot of people from being able to like get a job and be productive citizens of society. And you know who else agreed with me? It was, I don't know if he's still the president of the Society of Human Resources Management. His name's Johnny Taylor, Black man. And Johnny Taylor worked with the Trump administration when Trump was in office to make sure that more opportunities were available in the workforce for people who had committed crimes and gotten out of prison. Now, the irony of this is that the woke leftists within the HR movement were constantly going after Johnny Taylor for daring to work with Donald Trump on this initiative to help people who had gotten out of prison get a job. And it was actually a good thing. It was something that even when I was a Democrat, I was very supportive of this. I was like, SHRM is helping people. Like SHRM is like the biggest HR organization in the world. They put on the largest HR conference. I used to speak at it like every year. And I was always really impressed with SHRM. I was like, they're helping people in prison, like, or who just got out of prison get jobs. I actually thought that was great because I had a very good friend of mine go to prison and I knew how hard it was for him to get a job after he got out. It was a goddamn nightmare. He got fired from a fucking grocery store where he was like working at the deli counter. We're talking about someone who is a legitimate genius who has degrees in math and computer science. And it's like he couldn't get a job anywhere because he had gone to prison. And so I thought that that was actually really good. And Johnny Taylor, again, Black man, took a round of shit from the woke HR people. There was actually a hashtag on Twitter for it. It was called Fix It Sherm because they were so pissed that he was working with the Trump administration on that. I never understood it. George Andre Velasco Nunez says, she's right. The problem comes from the classrooms. If you're taught that you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, it's better to do it anyway. Yeah, I think that that's actually an element in as a part of this, George. I agree.
Becomes like a federal protection. I think that it all of that starts in our education systems. And so like Yadi Bey said, we have to follow the money. There's a lot of people profiting off of private prisons. That's a tongue twister. There's a lot of people profiting off of private prisons. So there's I
actually agree with her there too.
To throw people away.
I agree with her there too. I don't think private prisons should exist. To be really blunt, I don't think they should exist. I think that they are just horrible, like money laundering, like awful places that have no incentive to do anything other than put more people in prison. So I would actually agree with her on that point, believe it or not.
And to throw young Black and brown children away. And so I think that just simply looking at the numbers, for anyone that says, oh, it's all in your head, if you look at, if you take the data and just look at in the average school, who's getting expelled, who's getting suspended more, it is always the children of color, always. So I think that in itself, and one thing that I think is very interesting, I mentioned that my parents are both educators. My mom was teaching in K through 12 for a number.
Hang on. Brian says, I would say it depends on the crime. If you have a history of embezzlement, your employer might want to know. Well, also, Brian, though, I don't agree, though, because if you committed a crime and you went to prison for that crime, you've paid your debt to society. And just because you did something in the past that was stupid doesn't mean you're going to do something in the future that's stupid. I'm sorry. I just disagree. I think when you have to report like your entire criminal history, like years or even decades after you get out of prison, it only prevents people from becoming productive members of society. It only keeps them going back to the things that got them in trouble in the first place. So I disagree. I think generally speaking, people should be given the benefit of the doubt. I know that obviously there are times that policy gets me into a little bit of trouble, but I wouldn't have it any other way because I would prefer to see the best in people than the worst in people. And I know from watching directly what happened to my friend how hard it can be, and it's unnecessary, and it just encourages more criminal behavior.
Years, she actually ended up quitting because of the systemic racism. She was one of
We'll have
the
to agree
only
to disagree
Black
on that one.
teachers, and she actually got fired from her job, from her teaching job, because the principal, who happened to
I
be
thought you
white,
didn't have any Black
wanted
teachers.
my mother to change the grade of a white student who was set to be valedictorian. My mother was a French teacher. So they're like, your class is useless. He got a B+. Can you just change it to an A- so he can be valedictorian? And my mom is the type of person, I know some people would have just changed the grade to save their job. My mom was like, no, he didn't earn it. And they're like, well, it's just French, like you could just this is the principal of the school. And my mom refused to change the grade. And they're like, you know what? We're not renewing your contract. She can't prove.
King Peter from Tim Pool fame is in the chat. Welcome, Peter. King Peter of the chat.
Prove that was the reason, but it was so obviously. So it's not just the systemic racism and the fact that young Black children are more likely to get disciplined. It's also the things that the administration does to prop up the white students and to help the white students. I saw some similar story about a Black girl, I believe, who was named valedictorian, and the school was trying to say that like they're doing like a redo because people felt like she shouldn't be valedictorian. And it's just things like that it's hard to deny. It's hard for anyone who denies that our education system is entrenched in systemic racism, I feel like is just choosing a path of willful ignorance.
You've literally given random stories here and there and have provided absolutely no concrete data at all to indicate the education system is drenched in systemic racism. If you want to be taken seriously, you need to provide data, not this girl in this one high school had a problem that probably you're misconstruing anyway. Don't think we can't see through this shit, dude. Like, you've given us no data. Don't say, like, this is what always bothers me about these people is they say, well, if you are just willfully ignorant if you don't believe my lived experience. I'm sorry, that's one lived experience. And while I don't actually question that it's your lived experience is not broadly applicable to the general population. It's just not. Sorry.
Wow. Yeah. That to give to that part, I remember being in high school, my junior year, we had a sub come in and
they're literally just all talking about their lived experience.
My teacher had left.
That's all they're doing.
Everything was done. And I pulled out a book to read. Older white lady sub walks up to me and she said, ma'am, little girl, what are you doing? Mind you, I'm 17 and I'm sitting down, but I'm about 5'10", 17. And she says, little girl, what are you doing? I was like, just reading a book. Why aren't you working? I'm completed with that assignment. Her exact words, and I will never forget it. How can you and people like you be done before the rest of these good white people?
Bullshit.
This is in the middle of Oklahoma, Dell City, Oklahoma. And I was just like,
bullshit. If that happened, that was wrong. And that woman never should have been brought in to teach students again. I don't believe that happened. I don't believe her.
Because I am. And I just took my book and I went to the principal's office before I had anything else, because at any point something else could have erupted from that. And so those stories are there. And like you said, it's embedded and it's passed on through generations. And they have these generic stereotypes that, no, you can't be done. You're a Black girl in a room full of white kids. It was honors, AP class. And yes, I am done. I might be smarter than some of them, but that's it. But let's go ahead and go over to Yetibe. You are the producer of the kids show, Molly and Denali on PBS Kids. Unfortunately, the Indigenous voice is often absent when we are discussing representation and racism in our classrooms. How does Molly address this? In addition, what else needs and can be done to ensure that educators have this perspective included in their curricula?
That was a mouthful. Well, Molly of Denali has been an incredible production to be a part of. And it's the first animated series that has had an Indigenous framework, a story to be told about an Indigenous girl in Alaska. And it's been an interesting and educational ride for me, being a part of the show, coming from the education world and diving right into media. But the ability that we have to—
Hang on, super chat coming in. Oh no, my screens are all messed up. No. Okay, there it is. Brian, as a business owner, I think I have a right to know the liability that I'm taking on. It probably will not affect their hiring, but we should still know. Well, Brian, you know, I'm sorry. I just have to disagree with you. I don't think that it is a reflection on what they're going to be able to do in your business. And I think it is a really detrimental thing that holds a lot of people back from getting jobs and being able to do perfectly well. I understand your perspective here, but the fact of the matter is that you are never going to have full access to everyone's personal history when you hire them. You might hire people that got fired from their last job for embezzlement, but never went to prison for it. And you will never know, because you can't, like, a lot of places don't even do reference checks anymore. And if they do a reference check, all they do is they confirm that the person worked here from X date to Y date. And they're not allowed to say anything negative about the person. So there are numerous in basically every single person you will ever hire, you will not have any idea what negative acts that person has committed in their background. So why should this be different? Why should this be different? If you talk to the person, interview them, hopefully they learn from the mistake, hopefully they don't do it again. But to have an expectation that you should be informed of every mistake that person has ever made, I just don't think that's fair. I don't think it's valid. And I think it prevents a lot of perfectly fine people who made a mistake from getting a good job or any job, and just sends them back into a life of crime. I'm sorry, if you have the expectation that you are going to know the entire personal history of every single person you hire, you do not.
To write our own stories and tell them, from our perspectives, has been an incredible opportunity. And formerly, when I was working with the school district, we were using a lot of the Molly of Denali resources in our classrooms.
I mean, I can think of so much scandalous shit I've seen in the work environment. I have seen people blatantly breaking federal law in the work environment, never getting caught. I have seen people like doing, ungodly things to their coworkers that aren't illegal or even against the employee code of conduct, but that are really, really awful and detrimental to the business, there are so many things that people get away with that you will never find out about in the hiring process. And I'm sorry if it feels uncomfortable for you, but I just don't see this as any different. I really don't. And I think the benefits outweigh the negatives. Well, Lydia said she gives negative references if she didn't like that person. Lydia's going to get her ass sued. That it is incredible. Like, Lydia, you need to stop doing this because you're going to get sued. It is incredibly easy to sue people for this. Incredibly easy.
And they have different leveled reading books available.
And especially if she agreed to be a reference for a person and she's giving a negative reference, Lydia, if you agreed to be a reference for a person and then throw them under the bus, you fucking deserve to get sued. You're going to get sued at some point, dude, and you're going to get what you deserve if you keep doing this crap. Just confirm their dates of employment and move on. It is the easiest way to avoid a lawsuit that you are ever going to experience. I'm going to clip this and put it on Twitter, and someone can inform Lydia. Someone can send in a super chat to Timcast informing Lydia that if she keeps giving out negative references for people, Karlyn Borysenko says her ass is going to get sued. And it's not a good idea. Murphy's Pool, on the next Zoom, I'm going to talk about my lived experience after the last time I ate Chipotle. I mean, if you want to, I guess. I'm not going to deny you that closure. That's what the community Zoom is for. Okay, not really. But don't gross me out, Murphy's Pool. I have the power to mute your microphone on those.
For young learners to utilize and begin reading. And there's even one of our traditional stories from the Ubik area along the coast called the Crane Song, or the Crane Song. So anywho, check them out. There's a lot of
here's the thing with this reference thing. It doesn't matter. It like you can an employee can be the worst employee you've ever had in your life, and if you give them a negative reference, you can still get sued. If you prevent them from getting a job, and it does not matter if it's truthful or not, you can still get sued and they will win. And I know this is bizarre, and I know this is inconvenient, and I know this is not the answer people want, but I'm trying to protect you guys from getting sued. I really am. There have been many lawsuits on this exact topic.
Of different learning games also on our website, and it's been a wonderful opportunity to
You're being ethically honest to Lydia, like Patrice. I get it.
Because there are many shows on Alaska, and yes, they're reality shows, but we're often not seeing the Native perspective or the real perspective of Alaska Native peoples, because they're directed, to say certain things at times. And with this, with Malia Denali, we recently shared the story of Walter Harper, who was the first Alaska Native person to summit Denali, the highest peak in North America. And he's not a well-known historical figure. Well, gee, I wonder why. Well, it's because he's Alaska Native. He's a person of color. And
okay, can you name me one person to climb a mountain ever that is a well-known historical figure? Can anyone in the chat right now, white, black, indigenous, or otherwise, can anyone in the chat name a single historical figure that is well-known in America for, like, summiting a mountain of any sort? It ain't because they're indigenous. I'm sorry.
Watching that show, and even though like you get to work on all the editing pieces and you watch things a million times, I sat there watching it with my partner and was crying because I get to see me reflected. My family, my kids get to see them reflected on the television and see parts of our lives shown to the world in a good way. Not in a way that is negatively portraying us, but in our own voice and with a positive message. And that's what I appreciate being so much involved with it, because it's so incredibly positive. And we just share that side, right? We share the rich wealth of who we are as an Indigenous people.
She's gonna cry. I need to put tears on the bingo card.
And I am just so elated as you.
She's literally crying because she heard a story of someone climbing a mountain. I need to put tears on the bingo card.
Can tell, and it's emotional, and we're involving more and more Native language, which is incredibly important, as Native languages have been predicted to die out relatively soon. And to be able to hear different
free
words
square for her cry,
pronounced by
free
our
square
actors,
for tears,
the way we would pronounce
that's a good
them,
idea.
because
Free
we have
square
our
for tears
pronunciation guides, our cultural advisors, our language experts, and having that, I mean, it might just be a phrase or just a word, and it's like sharing with our youth, you do matter, your language matters, it's important, let's learn this, let's bring this back into your life, like see the light of who you are and who your ancestors are. And you know, I think about the quote that was out a while ago, that all of us Indigenous people here today,
did Brent get a bingo?
The result.
Brent got a bingo! If he's telling the truth. I sometimes don't know if Brent is telling the truth or not, but if you are indeed telling the truth, Brent, congratulations on your bingo. Well done. All right, guys, we've got one bingo down, and that means we're going for blackout bingo.
Of our ancestors being warriors and
but
making
still call
it
out
through
a bingo in the
all
chat
of
if you
the
get
colonization and historical trauma. And you know, recently in our news, we saw in Canada the founding of over 200 Indigenous youth that passed away at a boarding school.
Oh, she's gonna cry again?
Can you imagine their families, what they endured then, what they're enduring now?
Like another free square in the same
that
turn.
It brings into our education system. How can we have a real conversation with educators about the concerns we have about our kids when there's so much distrust because of where it was founded?
Wow.
Look, she's making other people cry. They're all crying.
So I had
Oh no, it must be systemic racism. Oh no, systemic racism has taken over the internet. Oh no, what's going on? Why can't we hear him? What's going on?
Okay.
I had a good friend of mine talk to me about she said that we speak a lot about Native people in the past tense, like they're not here anymore. And I think that was a very powerful statement. She's a local Native teacher here, and she just she really has spurred me to make sure that I'm educated not only on the curricula and the things that I was supposed to be educated on, but a lot of the things that you have to unfortunately work very hard to avail yourself of. So we're gonna go to this short clip, and then we're gonna hopefully just
a clip.
Talk a couple seconds about the information that's in this clip. Will, go ahead.
When freshman Omar Gaitan skateboards to school, he's careful to take the same route and wear
1985?
In the streets, the main thing you gotta worry about, violence, gangs. It's not as violent as it used to be, but like there's still a gang presence. If they do something to you, you're expected to retaliate.
Across the freeway, Cole McFall, a senior at one of California's top-ranked high schools.
Nova's like a PBS show, isn't it?
Kind of worry.
I think some people at our school do feel a need to succeed, and they push themselves really hard. There's like this.
Hang on, I know we have this very captivating clip that I really don't understand the context for at all, but I finished my beer, And now we're busting out the rhubarb beer. And Patrice, I don't care how you feel about it. I want to try this rhubarb beer, okay? I think this is, no, that's, yes. Belgian style wit brewed with rhubarb, working from home. I guess this is a sour. I did it. It's not an official sour though. It's a wit. It's not an official sour. Let's see if it's pink. Oh no, it's very light. I guess rhubarb isn't really pink. Let's see. Definitely does smell a little sour. It's very fizzy. Actually, you know what? The rhubarb is very subtle. I can taste it, but it's very, very subtle. It's actually just like it's like a crispy kind of like clean beer. It's a good hot day beer. I am not slurring my words. No. I did not have that 10% stout yet. Maybe I'll make a burrito later and have that. We'll see.
Mentality that, oh my gosh, I think I need to do well. I need to work super hard.
This is Silicon Valley, the home of Apple, Google, and Facebook. It is also
How is this?
home to
Hang
two
on.
very different communities.
Hang on. How is this 1985 when Apple and Google and Facebook all exist in Silicon Valley? This is not 1985. That is incorrectly cited. I don't know what year this was, but it was definitely not 1985. Mark Zuckerberg was barely even born in 1985.
Separated only by a freeway.
Maybe 95? No, we wouldn't
In
like
these
2005. Like
Palo
why?
Alto and East Palo Alto,
I don't understand.
life is entirely different. The resources for children are entirely different. The opportunities are entirely different. The schools are entirely different.
We have students who really want to.
I just want to note that even the students at this school in East Palo Alto probably had access to better resources than I did. And I went to the all-white small public school in Lillywhite, Vermont, okay? Okay, James Jones. James Jones is our researcher correspondent. Aired September 2016. That makes a lot more sense than 1985, I'll tell you that.
Succeed. And if success means learning in a certain path, they're going to really be ultra focused on that.
We have a lot of students who are helping to pay the rent. Not just adding a little bit here and there, but literally paying the rent.
All over the country, you can find these contrasts. Inequality in the United States is our Achilles heel.
Each year across the country, millions of children participate in a public education system built on a promise that all students deserve an equal opportunity to learn, regardless of zip code. But for many students, a long history of inequity has left that promise unfulfilled.
The United States is nowhere near the top of the list.
Students from Asia to Europe outperform Americans on tests.
Yes, and they always will.
Students from around the world.
They always will.
Test that consistently shows Americans ranking well below their peers from other industrialized nations. But that is not the whole story.
And you know how we're going to get those test results up? We're going to teach them systemic racism. That's sure to get those reading and those writing and those math scores up. Is if we teach them critical race theory and how oppressed they all are in schools, that is the answer to all of our problems.
fact, part of the American public education system is doing pretty well. We actually rank first in the world in reading in schools that serve fewer than 10% of kids in poverty.
Wait.
America has a
Did you hear what she just said? She was like, we rank first in the world in reading in schools that serve fewer than 10% of kids in poverty. So that wouldn't have been my school. Was my school racist against me?
child poverty rate nearly double that of countries like Canada and Germany, who outperform the United States.
High-performing nations on PISA scores have very tiny percentages of their kids in poverty. We just have a much steeper slope in this society to climb.
If you're designing a system that ensures that poor kids and kids of color are going to get less of everything that we know matters the most in public education, then you have a civil rights quagmire.
In spite of increased attention on education, in some states, nearly 1/3 of low-income students never finish high school.
Let's be clear, the achievement gap is caused by the opportunity gap. It hobbles far too many of our young people.
So nothing of merit in that clip that was even related to the discussion at all, is what I took away from that.
Wow. So in this piece, Ali mentions in the video that the system is designed to produce inequity and inequality. Talk to us about a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think there's so many, so many important points in that video. I think a really important point is the opportunity gap, and just simply the fact that oftentimes Black, Brown, Indigenous kids don't have those same opportunities. We talked about SATs, and just simply not having SAT prep at a lot of these schools is like the Achilles heel. I love the sort of analogy of our country, and the fact that not every student is given an equal opportunity or an equal chance. And then you compound that with the fact that white teachers come into the classroom oftentimes with preconceived notions about children of color, stemming from a lack of or inexperience with these kids, also what they see in the media, and all of these things mixed together just contributes to systemic racism, the school to prison pipeline, all of these things that we've been talking about. And the fact
not having an SAT prep program contributes to systemic racism. Is she saying you can be racist against white people who didn't go to a high school that had an SAT prep program? Wow. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive.
Just simply the fact that school or educational attainment and student achievement is so closely correlated with zip code and parental income is something that is like, how do we change that? I've asked myself this a lot, like, how do we go outside of, like, is a student really just bound by where they live? If you live in a rich area, you're going to have a good education. If you live in a lower income area, you're not going to have those same opportunities. How do we change that when, I know that property taxes are largely determined by, or school funding rather is largely determined by property taxes. So I think my question would be, how do we change the system? And I think part of it is getting more of us who want to change the system on the school boards and in these positions to make decisions. And then classroom educators, I know a lot of the folks watching are educators, having anti-racism embedded into your curriculum and being aware of these things, I think is so important.
So, and I'm gonna throw this to Yadi Bey, all right? We had a comment, and this comment is very heavy. So Lady Star G says
hang on, before we get to the heavy comment, George Andrew Veloso Nunez, is she arguing for school choice? Why, yes, George. I believe she is. I believe they're all arguing for school choice. Yeah, James says, their solution, of course, make every child's education equally lousy. And this is why we need to defund the government schools as quickly as humanly possible.
The following. This is a very difficult conversation to listen to when I'm an educator and will be censored if I speak up to the principal about offenses against students.
Oh, please. Oh, please. You're going to insinuate that in 2021, which is when this presentation took place, there is a teacher in this country that is going to be censored by their principal if they speak up about systemic racism? Please. Please. If anything, it is the woke teachers and the woke administrators and the woke principals and the woke superintendents that are going to censor everyone else who disagrees with them. And I know this because I have talked to teachers in the Burlington School District, and not everyone agrees with what the Burlington School District is doing. But they can't say it because they'll be fired.
How do we, what's a potential solution to problems like that where there is bullying on campuses? There are the powers that be that would not like conversations like this to happen, for that won't want people to make people aware that perhaps there are systemic racist practices at schools. How do we start to have those conversations? What does an empowered educator, what would you suggest to them to do in order to have that conversation?
That's a great question. I really like to put the power in the parents' hands, because the more parents that you have bringing up an issue, the more critically the principal will take action, and all higher administration. I also, if working with parents is difficult and challenging, like I would say just keep doing it, host, something outside of the school so you can really connect and have them as your voice, to voice that inequity. That's where the power lies. And there's a lot of power in the in those parent groups, the PTOs that a lot of schools have. And if you're a school that doesn't have one, they can start one. It can just be grassroots efforts like that. But I too was in a position.
Breaking news. I guess it's not really breaking. It happened 4 hours ago. Apparently, Elon Musk is tweeting about a Clinton campaign lawyer using campaign funds to create an elaborate hoax about Trump and Russia. Elon Musk is tweeting about this. I'm sure nothing could go wrong. Elon Musk, man, what a fucking baller. That guy must have, like, okay, I'm going to be vulgar. I've had a beer and a half. That guy must have the biggest set of balls that exists on this entire planet. That's what being a bajillionaire, I guess, buys you. Is the ability to say whatever the fuck you want, and no one can do anything about it. Elon Musk is the hero of the century. Elon Musk is going to go down in history as like the singular person that saved all of us. Yeah, Elon Musk had his red pill moment, and now he's like, he's busted out. He started speaking, and he's like, fuck all of you. Good for him, man. I used to be ambivalent about Elon Musk. I was like, he's kind of weird, whatever. I adore Elon Musk now. Elon Musk is the best.
And where if I said anything to my supervisor, I was afraid that I would get my hand slapped. I'm, potentially fired, of course, right?
Bullshit.
And so when there was the first resolution where we wanted to
Jenny's getting inky with it, says, next he'll tweet about ivermectin, better late than never. And of course, because I'm on YouTube, I have to say consult with the CDC for all your medicine-related needs. Although I will point out, without passing judgment either way, that New Hampshire recently made ivermectin available over the counter. See, you know why I'm not afraid of this monkeypox bullshit? Everyone's ringing about it on Twitter like, "Oh no, here we go again. It's going to be another pandemic with the monkeypox." Here's why I'm not afraid of it. Because New Hampshire has banned legally all of this pandemic bullshit. And so once I get back from Reno, I will never leave New Hampshire again if I can very well help it. And I will enjoy my freedom while the rest of the states are futzing about with the next monkeypox pandemic. And I'm sorry for all of you that are going to have to suffer through that, but I will not, because I'm never leaving New Hampshire again, ever.
Have celebrated Indigenous Peoples Day on the second Monday in October. I apparently didn't follow the process for submitting a resolution, which I later found out 5 years that it was a BS process that I was told. But anywho, so I didn't follow the process. And so it wasn't going to be heard by the school board at the time. And so instead of being like, wah, wah, wah.
So, like, they don't really prosecute people for having it. It's not recreational or anything, which is bullshit. It damn well should be. The legislator keeps fucking up on this. But the fact of the matter is like, I can like there's literally a dispensary like 2 seconds over the border that I can drive and go to. So it's like not the end of the fucking world. It is a limitation. I will admit that, Spirit Matter. It is a limitation. I don't know why our state legislature is so anal about this bullshit. They need to just legalize it all already or decriminalize it, definitely, but like, I don't know. I'm kind of snobbish when it comes to weed now, to be honest. I'm like, I want my nice clean dispensary and my vape pens so I don't have to smell of weed. Like, I'm gotten really snobbish about it. And I admit it.
Supervisor, I went to a parent group that we have connected with the organization, and they reached out to all of their parents in the community, and they showed up at the school board meeting, and they said how important it was to pass Indigenous Peoples Day and stop perpetuating the lie that Columbus discovered America. And we ended up having one of our school board members make a motion right on the floor after testimony to pass the resolution, and it's been in place ever since. But it's very strategic, right? You have to go roundabout ways, and it's baloney. But I liked what you said, Janice, earlier about we have to get into those positions ourselves. If we're going to change anything, we have to rise up. We have a group of Indigenous women here that meet together on occasion to support each other in moving forward into those political arenas, because those are what...
Hang on. I understand this, Spirit Matter. It's not as though, like, I don't partake on occasion. I just really prefer vape pens. I really do. I don't like the fucking smell, okay? I just don't. Also, vape pens, significantly easier to travel with. You can't travel with flour, dude. You're gonna get caught. Vape pens, very easy to travel with. Edibles, very easy to travel with. It's just more convenient. It's less messy. I get it, but this is just my preference. I'm allowed to have a preference. I want my fucking orange creamsicle or wedding cake or whatever other flavor, all right? Yeah, and now the truth comes out. Now we get to the truth. Of course you do. Because it's better.
Shape, the practices in each state. They shape our schools. They shape our police systems. There are a lot of decisions that we can really influence when we get into those places. And years ago, I encouraged youth, Indigenous youth who had often heard the message to work for Indigenous organizations.
A likely story.
We're often told by our elders to go get your education, come back and work for your people, right? Well, yes, there are great positions for change and help within our own communities. However, in order to influence and change other communities, we have to be employed by them. We have to sit at the table. We have to speak up even when it's uncomfortable and it hurts our hearts.
She's just not saying anything interesting, so we're talking about weed in the
other
chat.
People that can help strengthen us.
Nothing interesting at all.
It's going to be hard, and you're going to have those tough days where you just want to throw your hands up and quit. But if we're going to change America, if we're going to change the way our kids are being raised in our school system and change what's being taught in our school system, then we have to get ready and involved at the transformational level, which is in politics.
Oh, so you're saying you want to get involved to attain
big
political
facts.
power.
Oh,
Got
wow.
it.
It's always, the time
Got it.
always goes way too fast. We could talk about this for like 5 hours and I still would be cool. So
Let's not
get
do
to
that. I
all
want a
of the audience
burrito.
questions. And again, we apologize for that, but we are going to give both of you an opportunity to have a closing response in just a second. So we're out of time, but you can download a certificate of attendance in the chat box. The password is going to be deepening all
Ooh, you
lowercase
guys,
letters.
we can
You'll
all
see
get a
that link in
certificate
your
of
chat
attendance.
box.
Oh,
Deepening, D-E-E-P-E-N-I-N-G,
hang on a second. Hang
all
on.
lowercase letters. It is case sensitive, so all lowercase letters. Bro.
I don't want the time to end. I was ready to go a little further. We had some people in the chat box ready to go a little further, saying things like students of color in my high school were actually discouraged from taking ACT and SAT to keep the school district's averages higher, and agreeing that this is purposeful to keep us there. So we can, again, go on and on. But at this time, we're going to have some words of closing from our panelists before we log out. So it's over to you, Yeti Bay, and then over to you, Dr.
shit.
Candace.
I'm going to show you guys the
Thank you so
certificate.
much for having me here.
You get professional
And
fucking
I just
development
wanted
credit
to
for this.
say, one reflection and then hopefully wrap it up. But
I make
as I've,
amazing burritos,
worked with
Brent. I don't want to hear any
people
rumor.
who,
My burritos are
asking
awesome.
for professional development and culturally responsive teaching and whatnot, I do a lot of self-identity. And one of the things that I often hear is from our white relatives is that they don't have a culture. And I think it's a way that we have been trained to think and erase what has happened in our history. But if you are a white educator and this is something that you're passionate about, I would dive into that history and learn more about it, not to embrace the guilt and shame, but to understand it so that you can understand the hurt and the consequences that have been imposed upon people of color since our world began in America.
Yeah, I would, I just want to echo Yadi Bey's thoughts and thank you all for having us join this conversation. I think one thing I would ask everyone to think about, even if you're not an educator, is how do I support and help the most marginalized students and the most marginalized educators? Because I think it's not just the students that face the systemic racism, but the system is set up and designed against educators of color. So I know that someone left a comment saying, how do I even speak up when the whole system was designed against me? And I think that one thing I will say before we leave off is our voices are power. And social media, I'm very thankful for it because it gives us an opportunity to amplify our voice and reach hundreds of thousands and even millions of people in a unique way that we were never able to before. So I think using your voice in any way that you can, whether that's posting something on social media or opening up a conversation at the school that you work at or at the school you go to, and not forgetting that our voices are power. And no matter how much they try to silence us, they can't. You cannot get rid of an idea once it's sort of out there in the world. So that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you all so much for joining the conversation.
Oh man.
Don't you guys all feel a little bit more anti-racist?
Educators, thank you for joining us today. Your dedication to your students is evident by you agreeing to be part of these conversations. We provided a reflection guide.
I know, I feel more anti-racist.
About today's speakers, some resources to continue your learning on the subject, and some guiding questions to prompt some reflection around today's episode as well. I challenge you to take this a step further, however, and do as we tell our students and dig a little deeper. And while you are researching, the focus on finding resources that are produced by and for the students that you are teaching. Seek out resources that are written and created by people of color. Shout out to Molly Benally. They will give a more authentic perspective of the students and the families that you teach. As you dive into learning, you will recognize that the original credit thinking and pedagogy was created by Black people, people of color. Differentiating
Ooh,
instruction
new
goes
subscriber from
beyond
Norway.
academics
Thank you
and
for
should be applied
subscribing. We
holistically
appreciate
to
it.
each and every child. We hope that you can join us for our next episode on Thursday, titled Affirming Identities, the content we teach
God,
this
I kind of
Thursday
want
again
to.
on the
I'm not
on the
going to lie. I
17th
kind of want
at
to. We're not going to watch it tonight, though, because I
7
want a burrito.
Eastern. Out here in the desert, that would be 4 o'clock. So our Pacific folk in Alaska, that's what, like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. All right, just an hour off. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great evening. We will see you Thursday.
All right, everyone. Congratulations. You made it through happy hour. I hope everyone is feeling a little more anti-racist than they were at the beginning. I want to show you guys the amazing certificate that apparently we can all download and all write our own name into. And what I want to really show here is that they're giving a certificate for professional development credit. So if teachers are a part of some sort of organization or association that requires them to do a certain amount of professional development credit, they just got a professional development credit for watching that webinar. You can all download this certificate. You can all write your name on the certificate. Doesn't actually prove you learned anything, but you sat through a whole webinar and you got a URL and a password for the certificate. That's all that really matters. All right, guys, we do happy hour every single Friday on my second channel, Actively Unwoke. We now apparently have a new subscriber from Norway, which is pretty awesome if I'm honest about it. But next week, we will not be doing happy hour because I will be at the Libertarian National Convention. But that doesn't mean I won't be posting on the channel. I'm going to try to bang out some podcasts, do some stuff like that. But we will definitely be returning for happy hour the week after next Friday. And I don't know what we're watching yet. I'm going to find a really good training. But if you enjoyed the presentation, I hope you will mount that like button on your way out the door. I hope you will subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And of course, I definitely hope that you will become a member of my locals community, especially this weekend. Because all of the supporters in my locals community, people who are actually, supporting the work I'm doing, not only monetarily, but also I'm very, very blessed that my locals community members also, quite frankly, keep me sane. I will be recording my audiobook all weekend for Actively Unwoke. I am streaming the recording process into the community. We're up through chapter 4. Some of my locals members, I have to give a special shout out to Judy, and I think someone else corrected me too, but Judy actually corrected a word that I got wrong, so I have to go back and re-record that section, so thank you to Judy. But I'm actually streaming it as a supporter exclusive. So if you want a preview of what the audiobook is going to sound like for Actively Unwoke, this is possibly the very best time for you to become a member of my locals. You can do so by heading over to kb.locals.com/support. You can sign up for $5 a month. You can sign up for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift. All of these things are going to get you access to the exclusive supporter-only live streams of me recording the audiobook. I will not be recording anymore today because I'm a little drunk. Okay, maybe not drunk, tiny bit buzzed. And I want to go eat a burrito, and I want to go spend some time with Victor, but I will be recording tomorrow. I will be recording Sunday. I am determined that this audiobook will be done by the time that I have to leave to go to Reno for this Libertarian Convention. Thank you guys for the compliments on how I'm doing so far. I'm really trying my best. I'm having a little bit of fun with it now. I've kind of started to get into a groove with it, I think. I really think it's coming out great. Significantly better than the Crypt Keeper. I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to say that. The quality controlled version that came out a couple weeks ago. It's going to be great. All right, guys. And of course, if you have not yet bought the book, you can still get your copy. You can head over to activelyunwoke.com. And if you go to the homepage, let me bring that up real quick. You can find it on Amazon. You also have a bunch of non-Amazon options. And if you want to get the hardcover or Kindle version, that's available now. And make sure if you bought the book, make sure you head over to the Unwoke events page on activelyunwoke.com and forward me your receipt to bookclub@activelyunwoke.com, and that will get you signed up for an exclusive private book club with me. We're going to get to talk about the book. I'll answer your questions about the book. We can strategize about what to do. We can brainstorm for your specific situation. We can just commiserate about how crazy the world is. This is available to everyone who ordered the book. It used to be just for pre-orders. I've now opened it up to everyone because there were shipping delays and like crazy things that I couldn't have any control over. So I just wanted to open it up to everyone just to keep it fair. So make sure you buy the book, make sure you sign up for book club, and of course make sure you sign up for my locals community. Patrice says, worth the locals membership just to listen to the book. Just a hot tip for you guys. I appreciate that, Patrice. All right, guys. And of course, tomorrow is Sassy Saturday, and this is going to be over on my main channel. If you're watching on Odyssey or Rockfin or Rumble, let me just check in over on there. Odyssey or Rockfin or Rumble, it's going to be on the same place. But this is going to be on YouTube on my main channel, youtube.com/Dr. Karlyn Borysenko. I think the link is down there somewhere. And we're going to be doing Sassy Saturday tomorrow starting around 6 p.m. It's going to be great. There's going to be drama. There's going to be intrigue. There's going to be so much crying on Twitter. There's already been an epic amount of crying on Twitter over this live stream that we're doing tomorrow. Deb Philman is like, how dare Karlyn use publicly available content on the internet? Because that's what a reaction video is, Deb. If you put stuff on YouTube, people might react to it. It's just the way it is. If you don't like it, don't do YouTube. And we tomorrow are going to be reacting to a stream from my arch nemesis and gossip monger, Carrie Smith, the good Christian, of course, and her heretic pastor. And we are going to be talking about apparently the meaning of life with Graphically Alex joining me. It's going to be drama. It's going to be complaining. It's going to be bitchy. But I will say this. Graphically Alex and I give good life advice. We give sage advice. A couple weeks ago, we told Deb Philman she really needed to find a man to dominate her, to take her out of control. It was the best advice she's ever gotten. Deb Philman may have thought we were purporting a thinly veiled threat of violence by telling her she really needs to get dominated in bed. No. We were just giving practical advice about how to fucking relax and not look like such an insane person on Twitter. And we will be giving more practical advice tomorrow starting at 6 p.m. on my main channel. Until then, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your Friday, and we'll see you soon.